Shortly after I graduated college, I spent a few days traveling all over the state of Mississippi in hopes of catching a decent amount of rail operations. I would start my expedition in the popular tourist destination of Gulfport. It's Sunday evening and the CPKC locomotive shops and yard appear quiet. Since I had about an hour and a half of daylight left, I figured I'd make an attempt to catch something. In downtown, by the soon-to-be AMTRAK station for the upcoming revived Gulf Coast service, the diamond is a perfect spot to sit trackside. CSX shares this diamond with CPKC, and ultimately has authorization over it. My scanner picks up the CPKC port job local requesting a signal indication to cross over the CSX and head back to their yard. This came as a complete surprise to me, as I thought this local worked weekdays only, but I guess it's a 7-day-a-week operation now. KCS 2972 is leading the impressive cut of boxcars. The locomotive is a rebuilt GP40-3 that originally saw action on the old Frisco and its successor, the Burlington Northern, before winding up on the KCS, and well, as most of you know, all of KCS's assets were assimilated into CPKC. CSX wouldn't send me anything else, so I'd call it a night. The next morning, I would return to the locomotive shops to observe CPKC start up the locomotives. Once known as the KCS Job 16, this local job is very popular among the railfan community due to it being one of the few places you can find KCS SD40s on the road. Let's take a listen as the crews start up the 6-axle SD40s. Job 16 is now labeled as LL71. It will be taking 16 cars north to Hattiesburg, where it will interchange with the Canadian National. We noticed that the crews have detached number 6083, which was a huge bummer. 6083 is an SD40-2 that has a snoot nose. I'm pretty sure 6083 is one of 2 snoot nose SD40s left on the old KCS roster, though the other is a remote-controlled yard switcher up in Shreveport. The snoot nose is being placed into the maintenance track, and to make up for its absence, both 2972 and 2828 from last night's port job will act as replacement power. They would lead the train southbound, so I'd only chase north a bit because KCS Jeeps is a common sight for me, unlike the 6 axles up front. The quartet of locomotives will head to the yard just north of these shops to attach their outbound train. With everything all set up, our KCS motors begin trekking their way up northbound to Hattiesburg. Built in March of 1971, KCS 3165 is a rebuilt SD40-3 locomotive that has spent its entire career with the KCS until the recent merger. Trailing behind is Gray Ghost number 6092. I believe this is the last SD40 locomotive that is still sporting the classic Battleship Gray scheme. Although the old workhorse is not a purebred KCS, ironically it started as a Canadian motor with the Quebec, North Shore, and Labrador Railroad before winding up on KCS and now CPKC. On the south side of Wiggins, the LL71 is easing up on the throttle as it will be switching at the Baldwin Pole Company here in town. While it seems like a quiet town, Wiggins has loads of activity taking place at DeSoto Treated Materials, which sits adjacent to the Gulfport subdivision. I believe this is a supplier for building materials for the area. Anyway, we find the 3165 has wrapped up switching and is continuing north. With light shifting against my favor, I'd part ways with the LL71 after this roll-by. Initially, my plan was to chase the entire day, but like I said before, I get KCS Jeeps back home all the time, so I figured I'd try to get something that I don't see often. And just like that, I am back in Gulfport by the Diamond. I had decent luck with timing as it would only be 15 minutes before my scanner would pick up an EOT signal. I step outside to find CSX local L684 arriving in the town, preparing to drop off freight cars for CPKC and pick up their outbounds. This is CSX's NO and M subdivision, a 138-mile rail route that runs from New Orleans, Louisiana to Mobile, Alabama. Leading Longhood forward is CSX number 4084. 4084 is one of the numerous SD40-3 rebuilds that reside within the CSX roster. Unlike the KCS-3s, CSXs have a very different cosmetic design to them with their unique square cabs. Although I was down here for the railroad action, I did get to put my feet into the white sand for a short while and enjoy the beauty of the Gulf Coast. Almost made me want to rent a room at the Margaritaville and kick back, but I was here on a mission. Since I would be working my way east this afternoon anyway, I decided to chase the L684 as it returns back to its home yard in Pascagoula. Due to the heavy traffic alongside the Gulf Coast, I would go on and set up at Ocean Springs to watch the impressive rotating bridge swivel into position. L684 is based out of a small yard in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and its primary purpose is to conduct interchange operations with the CPKC in Gulfport. As you can see, the train is returning with several more freight cars than what it arrived with. I would check off another interesting bridge shot in Pascagoula as the L684 cruises over it as well. The bridge is right beside the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The NOAA is a government organization that studies the ocean's ecosystems and protects their environments. To the north, we find Moss Point, headquarters of the Mississippi Export Railroad and also the site of their primary locomotive shops. A pair of locomotives were sitting quietly waiting for the next assignment. While the MSE was an operation I had hoped to film the following day, unfortunately, our luck just wasn't there. Luckily, the day wouldn't be a total waste. Switching the Pascagoula yard is CSX 8540. The 8540 is an EMD SD50-3 locomotive that has roots with the seaboard and was built as a standard SD50 in February of 1984. Although not as efficient or liked by railroad crews as the predecessing SD40, the SD50s are a treat for rail fans. You can't find too many of these running around these days. We'd stick around for a while and watch the unit work. After I was satisfied with my shots of the SD50, I worked my way up to Meridian just in time to find Amtrak's southbound Crescent arriving to Union Station. Named after the Southern Railway's passenger service from a bygone era, the Crescent will be wrapping up its long journey from New York City to New Orleans here shortly. Although the P-42 Genesis locomotives have been the showpiece of Amtrak media the last few decades, the following years will find these fading away from the spotlight with the introduction of the Charger locomotives. Since we've never had Amtrak service in our home territory, we always will take the opportunity to document it. As the fresh staff is getting situated on board, CPKC's Macon Local is seen departing their small yard and moving on to the Artesia subdivision. While blocked off by a cut of freight cars, I was at least lucky enough to have some empty center beams to allow me to get somewhat of a view of a former Canadian National GP40-2LW sandwiched in the middle of the standard Jeeps. With all the passengers and crew aboard, the Crescent is given permission to head south on the Norfolk Southern's NO and ME. While passenger engines, the P-42s still produce that iconic chugging sound that is commonly associated with General Electric locomotives. A nice surprise wasn't too far behind the Crescent. Southbound Manifest 355 is making its way through town with the Central of Georgia Heritage Unit number 8101 on the point. This was a nice treat because this is my favorite of the Norfolk Southern Heritage Fleet. 355 is a daily southbound mixed freight that originates in Irondale, Alabama at the Ernest Norris Yard. It works in McCalla, Alabama, as well as here in Meridian, before eventually terminating down south in New Orleans. Working west along I-20, the following morning finds me in Newton as the Mississippi Southern Railroad is busy building its southbound train. The Watco crews will be taking their train down to Bay Springs to serve multiple customers down there, such as Georgia Pacific and Pecos Farms. Like several other Watco lines such as the Louisiana Southern, Vicksburg Southern, and Arkansas Southern, Watco took over operations of these lines in 2005 from the KCS. President Haverty of the KCS had a vision of improving long-distance service rather than switching several of these small branch lines. The Mississippi Southern is headquartered here in Newton, but also owns the trackage that runs north up to Ackerman. CPKC's Meridian subdivision also runs right through Newton, and there is not a conventional diamond for Watco to use to cross over. To head south, MSR must receive permission from CPKC dispatch to utilize their main line to shove back far enough to allow the switch to be flipped to head south. I know that's a lot, but you'll see what I'm saying here. With the entire train on the main line, the train shoves back over School Street. The conductor spotting the train shares a friendly greeting to the CPKC MOW workers awaiting clearance to begin their task for the day.
Alright, I'm down. About 8 off of South Bank.
With the train completely clear of the switch and the crossing, it makes its way forward to head on south. We'd find some CPKC action in the town of Brandon, Mississippi. This is LL40, nicknamed the Rankin Turn. Based out of High Oak Yard outside of Jackson, this local serves a few local industries in the county. While the power is sandwiched between cars right now, these concrete hoppers will be dropped at Lone Star Industries just up the line. These large boxcars actually come from the General Motors Distribution Center, which you can see the switch for to the right of your screen. After setting out the concrete hoppers, LL40 makes its way east a few miles to switch the Messer Chemical Industry. We'd watch them arrive, disconnect from the cars, and ease into the industry to pick up some loaded tanks.
derail is dead. Switches line. I'm on about 10 now. Alright, gate 2, derails are dead. Backing up 10. Correct. Things off up down there and talk about it.
While I did want to stick around some more and follow the Rankin turn, I had a passenger train to catch. Preparing to depart downtown Jackson is Amtrak's southbound City of New Orleans. I set up at the control point switch tender to grab a quick roll-by video. For the last several months, both the 58 and 59 trains have been led by the replacements of the Genesis fleet. ALC 42 Charger locomotive number 303 is leading. This would be my first time documenting one of these Chargers, and what better one to begin with than one in Amtrak's new Phase 6 paint scheme. Right on schedule, 303 sounds its horn as its LED stitch lights flash away. I hope you enjoyed this production of my rail adventure in the Magnolia State. If you did enjoy, please leave a like down below and consider subscribing if you're new here. Until next time, my friends, I'll see y'all somewhere out there along the rails, and as always, thanks for watching.